without further ado, here's Off the Cuff with Ling and Lamb. Ling and Lamb, what's going on? Let's get it. I love the fits.
Oh,
you know
thank you.
Thank you. Oh my goodness.
you
The
Thank
so
you.
palette
much.
is icing on the cake. I love that.
We try. We were like, nope, we're coming on off the cuff. We have to look good for Christian.
Yep.
Like,
Appreciate
we
that.
have
Yep,
to.
yep, yep.
And Lamb, that hat looks new.
Yeah.
That looks like you just got that.
Well, it's been around for a minute, but I don't wear it too often. But
like
when I saw this combination, I was like, you know what? This is the right hat for it. So I love that.
Special occasion.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, who typically gets dressed first, and like who sets the vibe? Is like, hey, like this is what I'm looking. What are you trying to go for? Like,
So the funny thing is, we get dressed kind of separately and
Yeah.
pop out like and see.
okay, and then
Yeah.
who goes usually the one that goes back to change if they need to?
Me.
Without doubt. Always and forever.
Me.
Lamb.
And sometimes she's already just waiting in the car.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Like-
really?
I'm
Oh, so
waiting in
you
the car.
I'm not gonna lie. I have a confession. I'm the same way.
She's waiting in the car. She's
Like-
like, and then she's texting me from the car. You know, we're 5 minutes late already.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to change because, you know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to,
So-
yeah. Listen, I have the same confession. Usually Angie, my wife, she's always ready and kind of doing. I'm usually kind of second guessing the fit. Maybe I should
Yeah.
change the shoes,
Yep.
put an accessory
Same.
or something like that.
You guys are the
Same
We're here.
problem.
We're
Yes.
here.
You're connected.
We apologize in advance.
Come on, Andrew. You're like,
No, but I'm so honored and excited to have you both on the show. Honestly,
you,
I've been
thank you.
seeing, honestly, just fell in a rabbit hole through the enormous amount of content that you've put out. But I think what speaks to me is so much volume, so much, like honestly, just it's just so tasteful the way you really show
Oh, thank you.
the world, honestly, who you are and what you have built. But I want to kind of dive in before we dive into like the nitty gritty of like how it was all built, how it came to
Yeah.
life. I want to understand to really learn more about this season in your life. What would you call this season in your life that you're in right now?
oh my gosh, that's a good
a very good one,
question. Wait a
yeah.
minute.
That's a good one.
That is really good. I feel like I'll say and then you can
Yeah.
say. I feel like we're just in this stage where we're ready for all new things. Like we're starting new content, like moving into new spaces. We've gotten a new team. Like we're all around looking to do new things and bring new things to our platform. So it's just like we're in a very new state, which can be scary, but also very exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What would
And
you
for
say?
me, that's a great question. For me, I'm every time I'm about to go on a new level, I'm in this space of uncertainty, fear. Am I making the right move? There's so many things we're working on right now that I've gone back to her to say, hey, are you sure this is it? You know, are you sure? Because I tend to over calculate. You know, because for me, my principle is 1 + 1 is 2.
See.
You know, I don't try to be over myself. So right now, I'm excited, but the uncertainty of the new chapters that we're embarking on is also making me feel very. Literally, I woke up this morning. I woke up 5:30 this morning, and I went for a walk at like 6 a.m. because I couldn't sleep. Like that's
He just
me
is
right
deep
there.
thinking on his walks.
You know,
Yeah.
I do all my deep thinking when I go for my walks. Yeah.
Absolutely. I appreciate the transparency so early on, and I think that level of fear and uncertainty sometimes we have to overcome.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And I'm curious, from your perspective, how do you, you mentioned the walks and stuff, but like, how do you overcome some of those fears or when, anxiety or just overthinking starts knocking on the door?
So okay, go first.
I was gonna say for me, sometimes in being very truthful, sometimes I just take a nap.
I
Like
that.
I'm like,
Okay.
I can't deal right now, so
Yep.
I'm gonna go to sleep. And I'm gonna wake up and then I'm going to attack it because I know I have to handle it. Like #adulting.
Yeah.
But always I go to God, I pray. I go to Lamb, my husband here, who's an amazing support to try to bounce ideas off of him and just try to get clarity and understanding and like, hey, I'm scared. And it's the best when he's like, I'm scared too. And it's like really facing that together. I would say prayer.
Yep.
And what would you say?
I would say like almost everything you just said, because I think one thing that I appreciate about both of us is every time we're in this phase, we have never been too afraid not to make the move.
Yeah.
We constantly express the fear, we're nervous, we're this, we're that, but we will make the move. So I found that in the midst of our fear, and that's how we keep growing. We're scared, but we just make the move, and we're like, okay, what's next? Like we just go. Boop.
Yeah.
So that's truly how we pray, we express the vulnerability of our fear, but then we make the move.
I love that. I think that's such a healthy, beautiful balance that you're able to come together as one and respect and understand some of those feelings, but you said still make the move.
Yeah.
Because like you said, at the end of the tunnel, there is light, at the end, when you take the first step, the rest is blessed.
Yeah.
Ling, I want to kind of kick it off with you because, before we dive into Ling and Lamb, there was a lot of paths that were walked before, kind of bridging those two together. Ling, for you, your background is in theater, film, and also modeling.
Yeah.
And I think that's important for us to really highlight because you had your own path, your own destiny, your own dreams. And I know you're still navigating those as well as you build an empire together. I'm curious to know, like, what about that foundation kind of helped you show up to the woman that you are today?
I think learning early on to deal with rejection, coming from that world of modeling and casting calls, auditions, you hear a lot more no's than you hear yes. So I think that equipped me for this industry, which is full of rejection. You oftentimes wonder, am I good enough? Like, what's wrong with me? What do I need to fix? So I think growing up with all of that and just really relying on at the time, because Lamb wasn't here yet, my family for that support. Always God as a foundation, and just realizing like I am good enough, I'm worth it. And the good thing about nowadays is like it's become way more open, the industry, like in terms of size, inclusivity, doesn't matter like how tall you are or your race or whatever it is. So it's better that it's also become more open, I think, too now. But in the midst of it, how it prepared me for this was just, like I said, like a tougher skin, like thicker skin, and knowing that consistency, if you keep showing up, I believe the door will open.
I love that.
So yeah, I feel like that prepared me for this.
That's beautiful.
Crazy life.
Yeah, because I honestly too, and I think that also kind of prepare you of how you both met. But before we even get there, Lamb, I want to talk about your path as well, because music was the foundation for you, right? It was the calling, what your passion turned into purpose. I'm curious to know, when you reflect on your journey and kind of that moment in your life, coming from Nigeria, understanding all the humble beginnings there. What about that foundation kind of set and kind of position you for the man that you are today?
Man, when you grow up with absolutely nothing, right? Because I came from a home, my parents were separated. My dad had money, but I was living with my mom, and my mom's family, we used to sleep on the floor, on the mat. My mom's parents, we started from a mud house, and coming out, waking up every day with my grandma, go to the market at 4 a.m, and then telling myself that I am going to become somebody. Now that you're asking me this question, like I'm literally looking at my childhood in front of me. How I used to, when like my friends in the neighborhood were doing like just things within the neighborhood, I used to like look for money to go out of the neighborhood, to go like look for like people, to go look for like DJs, to go look for like radio presenters, like to play my song. And there were times, I got several no's, but then I just kept going. So for me, and that's how I started growing, I just knew I have to change the narrative, and I also believe that there is an age you get to, you can no longer blame where you came from as the reason to why you're not progressing. There is a stage you get to as a human. It is fully your responsibility to look at yourself in the mirror and say to yourself, it's not about who gave birth to me. It's not about what I didn't know. What do I know now? And how can I use that to build the future that I want? And that is exactly what I did.
Wow. That's so beautiful, because that vision, that seed that was planted in you took you to many different spaces and places. You go from Nigeria then to the UK with the Salt album. That kind of initially inspired so much thing, brought you to the US and landed to a destiny that the rest was blessed. And I know we always ask, and I know you've been on different platforms of just saying, how did you meet? And you have a whole YouTube series around that and stuff. But I want to understand how divine timing would just so align in those moments, because you come here, you do prison reform, so many great, amazing things, but you come here and you land a prize and a blessing that you honestly didn't even know you were going to walk into. So tell us a little bit more about that story, how it all came into fruition.
The beauty of this question is picking it up from the foundation I just explained. That video shoot, I know so many people that they wouldn't have made it happen because it looks like they don't have everything they need. You have to understand, it was my first time in America, but I've always had that drive of I will make something out of nothing. You know, I called a director, a good friend of mine, Bishop, you know, it was like, I have some equipment, I can do it for you, you know. He came with the equipment. I needed a video vixen. I didn't have, I didn't have a vixen, and I couldn't afford to go pay a vixen. Her mom was part of my team. So I reached out to her mom. I'm like, can your daughter be my vixen in my video?
You said it just like that.
Literally. Up. My mom's like, go to her DM. I'm like, okay, Mom.
Oh, she set the alley.
She said, this is,
here's her Insta.
Use her Instagram. Go and talk to her. But she went home and still spoke to her. But then so you see, that drive, trying to make something happen out of nothing is the reason why,
we're here today.
God bless me with the greatest gift I could have ever asked for.
That is such a blessing, and I think, initially you made the move, right? But I'm curious to know, like, for you, you had to be acceptive, you had to be aware, you had to be present, right? Because being a video vixen is just not something to say, hey, I'll come through today and stuff like that. But you saw obviously something in him. They say, you know what, let's give it a try. I'm curious to know from your perspective, what did you see in him?
I was gonna say, funny enough, it didn't go like that at all.
Oh wow.
That's what I'm looking at you. I'm like, Christian is watching too many movies.
Tell us.
For real. So his DM sat there on red for a while, and my mom was like, are you gonna respond to him? And I was like, no, really, I don't know who he is, like, what music, video? She's like, you should really do it, he's a good guy, and worst case, it'll be like a credit for you. And I was like, well, he's not Future, he's not Chris Brown, I don't care. Like,
for sure.
Those are the only two people I'm jumping up and down for if they hit me in my DMs. And he's like, my mom's like, well, the song is really good. He's a really good man of God, and he has a really good mission. Just do it. Like, just try. So I wrote him back like a few days later, and I was like, hey.
She didn't listen to the song.
I guess. That works, I guess. And he was like, oh, okay, great. Like, so excited. Here's the song. Please, like, get familiar with it. And then the day of the shoot came like a week or so later, and I hadn't listened to it. But I showed up.
Yeah, she did.
I was the most sick I've probably ever been to date in my life that day, but I still showed up. I'm very professional. I was like, all right, let's do this. And during that shoot, it was like morning till night. I was like, he's really an amazing guy. And I'm so glad I did this. I thought we would just be friends, but here we are.
Well, once she gave me a number that day, I saved it as Peace, my wife.
I was like, that's not my name.
And I think you mentioned it's still like that to this day.
Yes.
Right now,
it's
I can show you my
like
phone.
that.
Never change. And it's never going to change.
I love that. I love that. And I think that's such a beautiful foundation element, because, like, again, that's what destiny looks like. That's like, I remember vividly of how my wife and I met. Like, she was coming out of the school bus, and I was the tour guy that on campus, and she was coming out. She's like, who's that guy? Right? And at the time, like, I had gave her a compliment. She kind of like brushed it off and kept it pushing, like kind of that. But it was always like, we always saw each other side, like a seed was planted. And then eventually you water that seed, and it blooms into something so more beautiful. And I think that's the root of such a powerful relationships, that when you're able to be friends first, and set the foundation. How long were you both friends before kind of making it like official?
So I will say that we knew, like, I feel like right away. Like, we dated for 6 or 7 months.
No, he's saying friendship. We were friends.
That's what I'm saying. Friends for like 2 weeks.
No.
Because then we started dating and got married like 7 months later. What do you mean?
I went back home. We were friends because you broke up with your boyfriend, and you refused to tell me because she didn't want to get.
It was only for a couple weeks.
Yeah, she didn't want to get me excited.
I was like, so I broke up.
You held that out,
Yeah, so she held it out, like, just to see if I would keep behaving, and I kept behaving, And And then later she now revealed to me that, all right, the door is open right now. And I said, this door,
That's so beautiful.
you
Yeah.
know,
You know,
yeah.
and I think it's an amazing thing because I want to lean into how this whole thing came into fruition, this whole brand, this whole destiny that you both are walking to, right? Because you meet, you have so much passion and so much love and drive for each other, and then I'm curious to know a little bit more about who was the one who initially said, "Hey, who wants to kick off this Ling and Lamb destiny, this brand that I'm visually seeing for myself?" Like, who was the one that kind of came up with that? And I know, Lamb, for you had a little pushback for that, but I'm curious to know,
So
how
that's a
did that
good
come into fruition?
question because Ling is a nickname that I've had family nickname, family nickname for a while, and then Lamb's name is actually part of his stage name, Lamborghini. So
That she refused to ever call me.
yeah, I'm like, I'm just gonna call you Lamb. And
Respect.
so that was at our wedding of Ling and Lamb. And so people just started calling us that even before we started this.
Wow.
But it actually started by accident in COVID in like September, August, something like that, 2020. And Lamb was trying a dish from back at home. Somebody had sent it to him, and it was his first time having Nigerian food in so long.
So Lame.
And as I'm passing by, finishing working out to go shower, he's like, "Hey, come try this." He was just videoing it to show his friend, like, "Thank you so much, we're gonna try it." And he was like, let's just throw it up on that app my friend keeps telling me to go on TikTok. And I'm like, all right, whatever. And we put it up, and the next morning it went viral. And we're like, I guess people want to see us eat. So,
But the conversation nobody knows about, like,
Yeah.
I struggled with it because, when we got married, it was not for social media.
Yeah.
right.
This is my baby girl, like, I'm just in love and I want a peaceful home. I'm a man after peace, and here we are now. People are loving what we're doing. The first thing, I remember we're in front of
The driveway.
the driveway of our
Yeah.
parents' house outside in the night. And I said to her, I said, hey, if we're going to do this, if it begins in any shape or form to affect our relationship and the love that we have, we're going to shut it down.
So it was you. It was you who like officially coined it. Like, this is going to be a thing.
I said, this is going to be a thing.
Are we ready for it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I said, if it ever begins to make us feel some type of way for, from what we came together for, we're going to shut it down. And she agreed, and I agreed that if this gets in the way, if it's no longer fun, if it's, and I think because we had that conversation, it kind of made everything even more solid.
Yeah, it solidified everything for sure. Yeah.
No, I think that's important because sometimes we just jump into something not knowing if we're meant to do this thing, right? And it can affect so many things and so many people, and it can hurt so many people along the way. And I love how you set the foundation, so early on, right? Because it's so harder to do that once you're in it.
Yeah.
Right. And I think, how do you remained in the joy of the marriage, right? Now that you're both married, but also creators, partners, business partners, amplifying together, right? Sometimes it's hard to do that in a marriage while you also have to be a husband, you also have to be a wife, you also have to be supportive of each other. How do you balance that effectively, more in detail and stuff, where you guys are just making sure that you're both doing this for the love and for the passion of just one another?
So I think like the real life moments are when we're actually in the middle of something, right? Like, let's say we're actually shooting a piece of content and we just get so frustrated, and what should be like a 10-minute shoot becomes like 30 minutes or an hour, and it's like, all right, let's just turn the camera off. Like, we need to take a chill pill. Like, maybe we're getting upset with each other, or we're both just heated because I have an idea and he has an idea, and it's just like, we just need to chill because like it's our job, we have to do it at the end of the day. But like, let's make sure we're doing this with good energy and make sure it's not affecting us. Sometimes we'll shut it down for the whole day. If it means the whole day we're not doing something today to make sure it doesn't affect us for real, that's what we're gonna do. Like, we care about our community, we care about our Ling and Lamb brand so much, but not more than us.
No.
Yeah.
We were before they.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and to further go into a little bit of that detail, that balance, I think for us is, luckily for us, a lot of our content are very spontaneous. A lot of our content are very experiential. So because I already, we are both already in that rhythm of, we always pull out the camera and capture moments. But I think the number one thing for me, and you know this when I say it, is our best moments, we don't capture it. We forget to get a camera. I'm not even kidding. Like, we will both be laughing and crying. And we're like, did we just miss that? So when we realize that we are happy outside of social media, and not once, not twice, not like our best moments, we don't remember to turn on the camera. So we knew that, okay.
Well, it's like you always say too, like, we don't want to be a slave to it. You know what I mean? Because it's that's when you don't enjoy it anymore, and that's when things can get tough between us.
So we told ourselves we will never be slaves to social media, and we just do it, and then it became a whole brand. It became a whole brand. It became working with brands. It became consulting, for some of the biggest social media platforms. We've literally consulted with, all the platforms, and it's such a huge blessing.
That's beautiful.
So it's I think for that balance is just knowing when to shut it down.
Yeah, just turning it off sometimes.
Just shut it down.
Yeah.
And you mentioned best moments. I'm curious to know, what are some of the best moments we don't see on the camera? If you had to name just one.
No, I'm trying to think of like just one.
Is it a lot?
I know. I don't even necessarily know what like one thing is, but like literally it could just be like anything. And it's just like, oh my God, I wish we recorded that. But then it's like, no, it's okay to have moments that are funny with just us and it not be shared online. Like, so that's okay.
And it's a lot.
Like I'm trying to think of.
It could be over a food, it could be over a gossip. For sure. Because we're like gossip partners.
You always gotta have one.
Yes.
It stays in the home. It stays between us.
Anything. Like literally. Again, we've seen couples say things like, like if she sees someone, how you see someone and you're like, look at that. Like, she.
We like to people watch.
Like, and I would go like, babe, did you see that? Did you see that? Like, we will be allowed, like, so it's like memes, we send each other like,
reels all day.
Reels all day, memes all day. So like, you see, if people see the amount of memes we send each other in a day, they wouldn't believe it.
Wow.
And those are moments that we don't even need to record.
Right.
So yeah.
I think that's a beautiful thing, because you're both kind of embracing each other's personalities and stuff. And I think the brand kind of also came into fruition of embracing each other's culture, right?
Yeah.
And if you reflect right now, if you had to pinpoint something, what have you learned to appreciate about each other's culture?
I've learned to appreciate that even though Lamb sounds like he's really loud, that's just his normal voice.
Why did you have to say it like that?
And now I love it. And when the house is too quiet, I'm like, where's Lamb?
Yeah, she started looking for me when the house is quiet.
Right.
I love it.
Good.
What's one for you?
Well, I think for me, it's just understanding the fact that she, she's very sarcastic. I don't know if that's culture, but
no, I think it is.
Yeah, she's very, very sarcastic. Like,
it's my culture.
Like sarcastic, and I have to keep up with the sarcasm, because let me put it this way. I didn't see my parents have that kind of fun growing up, right? So being with someone that is sarcastic, but she doesn't mean she doesn't like, for example, I might ask her something, she's like, is something wrong with your Google? I'm like, what do you mean? And she said, use it. That's why it's on your phone. Use it.
Right.
Now, I don't like that answer. I'm just keeping it.
You're keeping it real. Right.
I don't like that answer, but guess what?
He's gonna Google it.
I will Google it.
Listen to your wife.
Yeah, I'll Google it. But it's interesting, and I say this to her, even though I'm confessing and accepting, it doesn't mean I'm not going to ask her tomorrow. I'm still going to ask her.
Yeah.
But it has actually helped me a lot.
To learn.
To learn.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like those, even though it's sarcasm, but it has helped me a lot to learn. So I think those are part of the ingredients,
I love that. I think that's so beautiful. And, one of the main things, and I want to congratulate you because we have it right here, beautiful foolishness. And you touch upon so many of these gems and so many of these hidden gems and the
Yeah.
behind the scenes and lessons for people who are looking to dive in, right? Because there's something specifically about this, right?
Okay.
You mentioned that beautiful foolishness invites you to pause, write down your thoughts, and apply key lessons to your own lives,
Yeah.
reminding us all that love is about embracing differences and finding laughter in the chaos. When you think about, when we dive into so many of these amazing lessons and stuff, when we hear all of these happening today, what makes this book and this season in your life so special?
That's a good one. I think I love that our community is able to see us in a more behind the scenes way. We shared a lot that we've not put out yet. So a lot of people are like, oh, I know Ling and Lamb, we've been following them for years. What do I need to know more about? And I think, like you said, it's the gems, it's more deep, raw conversation that we're having, because it's very conversational.
Yeah.
I'm talking, Lamb's talking, I'm talking. And then the takeaways at the end, it's really like one of my favorite books is The Alchemist. And I love it because it's like something I can carry with me. I've dog-eared so many pages. And that's what we put into this. It's like, we want you to say like, oh wait, what was that thing Lamb said in chapter 6? And like go back to it and reference it. And this book is great because it's more than just our love story. It's also for anybody who wants to love harder and live more intentionally. So it's a really good genre mix of all those things in that book. And I think I'm excited because, again, in part of this new phase that we're in, this is a totally new vertical that we're introducing to our audience. And so it's been interesting to see, people's reception to it. And now they're asking for like an audible.
Wow.
So, we could do the voice behind it, which is
both
gonna
do
be
it?
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. Yeah.
So that's a new next adventure that we're gonna do too. And so that's how I feel about it in this stage.
love that.
Yeah, and for me, I think this book, the fact that as a couple we agreed from the foundation, from the incubative stage of it, to it took 2 years. The back and forth. The fact that as a couple we were able to work in agreement, and we didn't allow each other's ego or anything stop the vision of making sure the product becomes a reality. It's my biggest takeaway, because it made me also further trust. It's one thing to love a woman, it's one thing to love your partner. It's a whole different ballgame to work with them.
Yeah.
So the fact that we could work on this and it came to life, it just tells me, I see it as a foundation and the possibility of being able to work on so many other things together that we can bring to life. So every time I look at the book, that's what I see.
I love that. I think foundation has to be set, right? And I think sometimes, like, when we're one, right, and when God brings one, we talked a little bit offline. You said, the man is supposed to be the guiding principle to the woman, and then being able to be in those standpoints, right? I think that's so powerful. And I think, the gems, the takeaways, everything in this book is just highlights what love should look like, all through the thick and thin.
Yes.
Right. My wife and I are about to hit 1 year being married, right?
Congratulations.
So thank you. So it's a milestone, but we know there's a lot of behind the scenes that people don't see, right? And I'm curious to know, from that lens of vulnerability and authenticity, what are some of those behind the scenes that we often don't capture in camera, but we understand that the root of it can be faith, the root of it is conversations that we had before. I'm curious to know, what are some of those behind the scene moments we often don't see?
What would you say are some of the behind the scenes conversations?
We can talk about like the true feeling we both felt when we just got married and living in your parents' one room, that nobody saw how those true moments. So
like really struggling there.
Yeah. And so what is those moments, so you can talk about that from your perspective, how you felt as a woman.
Yeah, no, it was tough because when we got married, we moved I stayed in my parents' house and we lived in my bedroom that I had grown up in from the time I was like in high school. And so it was, well, not high school, but just very long time as a kid. And it was tough to move in as a married person and live with my parents right down the hall. That we shared, but like people don't know that we cried. Like I cried. It was really tough. Sometimes I didn't really see like the light at the end of the tunnel. Living there, I was like, oh my God, this is embarrassing. Like, are we ever gonna get out of here? But in the weird way, it also really motivated me to want to work harder to change the situation. But that's something that I don't think people really saw while it was happening. Yeah.
Yeah. So and for me, that phase was tough, man. As
Yeah.
a man, because when I got married, I never thought in my life that I would have to go back to my father-in-law and say, can you please give me and my wife, your daughter, a roof over our head for a few months, I was depressed at that period,
Yeah. We were very depressed. Yeah.
I just want to keep it, I just want to be as real as possible.
Mm-hmm.
I was very depressed that period because that was not the vision I saw, and I'm a very careful young man. I try to live right, the best way I can. So I didn't see that coming at all, and when that happened, I had to deal with shame from my immediate wife's family, which they were loving me.
Yeah,
Look
they
at
loved it, but
regardless,
we're just
yeah.
like,
regardless, right?
Yeah.
Our parents, brother, they loved me, but I just felt I was receiving love, but for some weird reason, I was just covered in shame.
yeah.
Because I just felt like this is not where I want to be, and then I was facing shame from friends or people who knew me, and like, oh man, you're living with your wife's parents. So that period I was depressed, man. I'm just being truthful. I was very, very depressed to the point where sometimes her mom will call her while she's at work and say, hey, check up on him.
He hasn't come out of the room today.
He hasn't come out of the
Yeah.
room today, and by the time I come out of the room, you see how we laugh about everything, but this
I
is
love it,
serious,
bro.
Right.
It's serious, but yes,
bro.
Yeah.
Like, this is serious. But you see, one of the sweet thing about both of us is moments that were supposed to tear us apart we turned it into laughter.
Yeah.
We just laugh about the situation, like, but that period was very tough, brother. Like, it was tough, and I just knew we had to figure out a way to get out of that place. And another point of agreement, we both worked together in agreement. We carefully started planning ourselves. She said she got a promotion with an increase at her job. I called her. I said, hey, we're still going to leave like you didn't get that promotion.
And I'm like, you keep quiet.
And she was like, so she doesn't like talking about money, She was like, no. I was like, you see the increased salary?
Pretend you didn't get it.
Pretend you didn't get it and put it in the savings. We're not changing anything because we need to get out of here.
Yeah.
And when I went to work, any little thing I got, I was throwing it in that account as well. So when we woke up one day, literally, we were about to celebrate Christmas with our parents. We went and bought Christmas tree. We were all going to celebrate, and we both just looked at each other. We're like, we're not doing Christmas here. Let's go.
We're like, we saved up enough, and we got our first apartment.
Wow. Look
Yeah.
at
We're like, let's go. And we held each other's hand,
And we were like,
and we're
that.
like,
Still doing it.
Yes.
we held each
We're
other's
like,
hand, and
"Let's
we're
do
like,
it."
let's do it. And I said to her, we are not going back.
yeah,
I said, we will never go back to your father's house.
yeah. We kissed on
stay.
it, and we
Like,
did it.
We're getting out, we'll figure it out, and we'll keep going. And
That's so beautiful.
and that's it.
Yes.
And that's how the testimony
Yes.
and the journey in the marathon
Yes.
continues.
Yes.
You know, that's so
Yeah.
beautiful. You know,
Yeah.
and as we kind of make our way to the end here and kind of the questions, I want to lean in on some advice, right? Because we touch upon a lot of gems, a lot of takeaways and stuff, and we heard the beautiful testimony where you are in the season.
Yeah.
And this I can't wait to honestly get this. Before you leave, you got to autograph this.
Yes.
You got to sign it for us, you know. But definitely want to understand, like, you know, for the people watching this, you know, for the followers and, you know, for those who are in relationships or looking to get into relationships, I'm curious to know from your perspective, what piece of advice would you share with them?
I would say, because this is what I did for myself, love yourself first. Super cliche, but until you know and love yourself first, you'll never be able to adequately give love to someone else and let someone else in to love you the way that you need it. And sometimes also, it doesn't look like what you're expecting, and be open to that. Like, the best thing to happen to me is Lamb, but we say all the time, it's like he didn't necessarily come in the package that I was looking for myself, but I got something way better. So it's about being open and knowing yourself. Those are the two pieces of advice I would give.
I'm better than your crush. I'll
No,
tell
yeah,
you,
I know. We talk about it all the time.
That's my way of getting back.
I love that. You know? Let's get it, man. Icing on the cake. You know, Ling and Lamb, I definitely want to take this time to give you both your flowers. Thank you
so
for being a
much.
walking inspiration. Thank you for being a union that is powered and fueled and aligned by God, and being a vessel, being a light to so many people that, you know, grown together doesn't need to look individual. It can happen together.
Yes.
Right. So I just wanted to give you your flowers for just being
Thank
so
you.
vulnerable, so present, and honestly so honest.
Thank you
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. But I just have something just hit me in my mind that I want to put out, you know, as part of my advice, mostly to young men, because in today's world, I just see, like, you know, when I read comments or I see videos, I just feel like a lot of the young men today, I'm young as well, but like, I just want to put it out there, you know, be patient, you know, find yourself a good woman. You know, when you find a good woman, don't play around with that good girl, you know, that good love, you know, because it's very difficult to find. That's one. Two, allow each other to fulfill your individual destinies while you come together to fulfill your destiny together. Because what I've noticed is a lot of times, you know, marriage shouldn't kill your destiny. Like I say it all the time, if God has destined you to be something that is going to impact the world, I don't want to be in the way of that. My job is to guide, support you to achieve your destiny.
And vice versa, yeah.
You know, so like, sometimes she's working on projects she wants to give up. I'm like, no, you're not. I'm like, you got to keep going. You know, like, that's why we opened up a nail salon. You know, I don't do nails. It was, you know, but I supported her. You know, strongly behind her, and the business didn't go as we planned. You know, but when it was time, I stepped in and I said, hey, I know this is your baby. It's your first business, but it's time to let it go. Because it's going to cost you more trying to keep it, you know? So we sold the business, but then few months after that, I was like, what's the next project?
Yeah, on to the next.
I'm like, you know, so you see how, because I don't want to be in the way, you know, and it's not in my way as well, but I just want to put it out there to a lot of, you know, couples, you know, allow each other to shine and blossom, you know.
I love that.
Yeah.
You know, Ling and Lamb, let's get it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, for an amazing conversation.
Thank you.
Wish you ongoing success. You
Thank
know,
you so much.
Can't wait for the tour to come back.
I
You know what I'm saying?
know.
The beauty line, come on, let's get it. You know,
So you see, she's working on something.
Yeah.
That's what I'm telling you. Like,
exactly.
I'm not in the beauty line, but
Yes.
that's our vision. That's our project. I'm like, go for it.
I love that.
We support each other.
Yeah, she's been working on that beauty line for 2 years now. You know, and it's gonna come.
Yeah.
It's
When it's out, I'll send it to Angie.
Yes, we're gonna make it happen. Listen, send some too, because I'll be using
Yes.
all the self-care
Oh,
products. You
yes,
know, I
okay.
gotta get right. You know,
I love it.
I
Oh my
appreciate
God!
you.
Thank you
Thanks,
so much,
Christian.
and we
Thank you
wish
so
you
much.
big
Yes.
success on your platform, this podcast, this beautiful platform you've built.
Yes.
You know, hey guys,
Skyrocket.
anywhere you see Christian,
Yes.
support him. He's a great guy. Him and his wife.
My man,
Yes.
appreciate it.
Amazing.
And that was off the cuff with Ling and